There is something deeply fascinating about human beings. We are a species that exists in a constant balance between imagination and reality. Long before we had the tools to explore the universe, we filled the unknown with stories. We imagined gods controlling the skies, creatures living beyond the stars, and hidden worlds waiting to be discovered. Even today, that tendency remains. We are drawn to ideas that stretch beyond what we can directly observe, and in many ways, this curiosity is what drives progress. However, there is a paradox in how we think. While we are willing to believe in possibilities that have no direct evidence, we often struggle to accept realities that feel too extraordinary, even when they are supported by overwhelming proof. This paradox becomes especially clear when we look at one of the most significant achievements in modern history, the moment humanity first set foot on the moon. Despite decades of documentation, analysis, and verification, millions of people still question whether it truly happened. This is not a fringe idea limited to a small group. It is a widespread skepticism that appears across different cultures, age groups, and levels of education. What makes this so intriguing is that the doubt does not stem from a lack of information. In fact, the moon landing is one of the most extensively studied events ever recorded. Instead, the doubt seems to come from something deeper, something rooted in how we perceive and process reality. To understand this, we need to go back to the context in which the moon landing took place. The late 1960s were defined by intense global tension, shaped by the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. This period, known as the Cold War, was not fought through direct confrontation alone, but through competition in science, technology, and influence. Space exploration became one of the most visible and symbolic aspects of this competition. At the time, the Soviet Union had achieved several historic milestones. They launched the first artificial satellite, sent the first living organism into space, and successfully placed the first human into orbit. These accomplishments demonstrated not only technical capability, but also a form of global leadership in innovation. The United States, facing this series of achievements, needed a response that would redefine the narrative. That response came in the form of an ambitious and unprecedented goal: to land a human on the moon and return them safely to Earth. This objective was not just about exploration. It was about demonstrating capability on a global stage. It required the development of entirely new systems, the coordination of thousands of individuals, and the willingness to accept risks that had never been taken before. The journey toward that goal was far from simple. There were technical failures, unexpected challenges, and moments of uncertainty that could have halted progress entirely. Each failure, however, contributed to a deeper understanding of the problems that needed to be solved. Over time, these lessons shaped the technologies and strategies that would ultimately make the mission possible. After years of effort, this process culminated in the mission known as Apollo 11. When the rocket launched, it represented more than a technological achievement. It symbolized the culmination of human ambition and the ability to transform an idea into reality. The mission carried astronauts who had undergone extensive training, preparing them for an environment that was both unfamiliar and unforgiving. When they reached the moon, Neil Armstrong became the first human to step onto its surface, followed by Buzz Aldrin. This moment marked a turning point in human history. It demonstrated that it was possible to travel beyond Earth and interact with another celestial body. The event was broadcast worldwide, allowing millions of people to witness it in real time. Yet, despite this global visibility and the extensive evidence that supports it, skepticism persisted. To understand why, we must examine how human perception works. Our understanding of reality is largely built on direct experience. We trust what we can observe personally, and we use those observations to form a mental framework of what is possible. However, space exploration exists far outside the scope of everyday experience. Most people will never leave Earth, never experience the conditions of space, and never see the planet from an external perspective. Because of this, the moon landing can feel abstract. It exists as a concept rather than a lived experience. When the brain encounters something that does not fit within its established framework, it may respond with uncertainty. This uncertainty can develop into skepticism, especially when combined with selective attention to details that appear unusual or difficult to understand. For example, questions about the movement of the flag, the appearance of shadows, or the quality of the images have often been used to support doubts about the moon landing. While these details have clear scientific explanations, they can still create confusion for those who are not familiar with the conditions of space. This highlights an important aspect of human thinking. Perception is not always aligned with reality. What we expect to see influences how we interpret what we actually see. Another factor that contributes to ongoing skepticism is the question of why humans did not continue returning to the moon after the initial missions. At first glance, this question seems reasonable. If something as significant as a moon landing were possible, it might be expected to become a regular occurrence. However, the historical context provides a different perspective. By the early 1970s, the primary goals of the moon missions had been achieved. Astronauts had successfully landed, conducted experiments, and returned with valuable samples. The missions demonstrated that such travel was possible. Continuing these efforts would have required significant financial resources while offering diminishing returns in terms of new discoveries, at least based on the priorities of that time. As a result, attention shifted toward other areas, including the development of space stations and robotic exploration. Despite this shift, the moon did not lose its importance entirely. Decades later, new discoveries renewed interest in lunar exploration. In 1998, the mission known as Lunar Prospector detected evidence of frozen water near the moon's south pole. This finding suggested that the moon could potentially support future missions in ways that had not been previously considered. This was further supported in 2008 when the Indian Space Research Organization confirmed the presence of water molecules on the lunar surface. These discoveries transformed the perception of the moon from a symbolic achievement into a practical resource. It was no longer just a destination. It became a potential stepping stone for deeper space exploration. This shift led to the development of new initiatives aimed at returning humans to the moon, including the Artemis program by NASA. Unlike earlier missions, the goal is not simply to land and return, but to establish a sustained human presence. This involves developing technologies that can support long-term exploration, resource utilization, and potential missions to Mars. Because of these expanded objectives, modern missions are significantly more complex. They require advanced systems, extensive testing, and careful planning. This can make progress appear slower, but in reality, it reflects a deeper level of development. The focus has shifted from proving that something can be done to ensuring that it can be done reliably and sustainably. Even with these advancements, skepticism continues to evolve. In today's digital age, the ability to create realistic simulations and manipulated content has introduced new challenges in distinguishing between what is real and what is fabricated. For some individuals, this has led to a broader sense of uncertainty, where even well-documented events can be questioned. Ultimately, disbelief in the moon landing is less about the evidence itself and more about how that evidence is interpreted. Accepting that humans walked on the moon requires accepting a level of technological progress that may feel difficult to reconcile with everyday experience. When faced with something that challenges existing beliefs, the mind may respond by questioning its validity rather than adjusting its framework. This reveals a broader insight into human cognition. We are not purely rational in how we form beliefs. Our perceptions are influenced by experience, expectation, and emotion. While skepticism can be valuable in encouraging critical thinking, it can also lead to persistent doubt when it is not balanced with an openness to evidence. In the end, the moon landing represents more than a historical milestone. It serves as a reflection of human potential and the capacity to achieve what once seemed impossible. It also highlights the complexity of belief, showing how even well-supported events can be subject to interpretation and doubt. As humanity continues to explore space and push beyond its current limits, similar questions will likely arise again. Future achievements may also be met with skepticism, not because they lack evidence, but because they challenge our understanding of what is possible. So the question remains, not only about the past, but also about the future. Do you believe that humans walked on the moon? And perhaps more importantly, do you believe in what humanity is capable of achieving next?